My sister scheduled her party on my daughter's funeral day. The machines beeped their steady rhythm while I held my daughter's tiny hand. Lily was 3 years old, and her fingers were so small they barely wrapped around my thumb. The pediatric oncology ward smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I had memorized every crack in the ceiling tiles above her bed, counted them during the endless nights when sleep refused to come. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her voice scratchy and weak. "Can we go to the park when I feel better?" Her eyes, still bright, despite everything the cancer had taken from her, looked up at me with such hope that my heart shattered all over again. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This story gets darker than you can imagine, and you need to hear how karma finally caught up with the people who hurt me most. Drop a comment if you've ever dealt with family who put their own wants above your worst nightmare. "Absolutely, sweetheart," I said, brushing what remained of her thin hair back from her forehead. "We'll go on the swings just like before. I'll push you so high you'll touch the clouds." Lily smiled, and for one precious moment I could pretend. Pretend that the stage 4 neuroblastoma ravaging her tiny body was just a bad dream. Pretend that the experimental treatment hadn't failed. Pretend that the doctors hadn't pulled me aside yesterday and said we were looking at days, now maybe a week at most. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Nothing mattered except this moment, this hand in mine, this precious child who had painted my world in colors I never knew existed. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. "You can check it," Mommy Lily said. "I'm okay. I'm a big girl." I pulled out my phone expecting messages from my supervisor at the community health clinic where I worked as a nurse practitioner. Instead, I saw 19 messages from my older sister, Natalie. The first one made my stomach drop like an anchor. "Elena, I know this is hard for you, but I really need you to be there for my housewarming party. I finally bought my dream house, and I need my little sister there to celebrate with me." I stared at the screen, my vision blurring, and Natalie knew Lily was dying. She had visited exactly once in the past 8 months, staying for 17 minutes before complaining about hospital parking fees and the depressing atmosphere. I scrolled through the other messages, each one more insistent than the last. "Mom and Dad are flying in for it. Everyone will be there." I'm thinking June 14th. Does that work for you? You've been so focused on Lily. I know you need this distraction. It'll be good for you to think about something else for a while. June 14th. I looked at my daughter, watched her chest rise and fall with visible effort. The doctors had given us until mid-June at best. My sister wanted to celebrate her new house during the time I would be burying my child. I didn't respond. I put my phone on silent, slipped it back into my pocket, and sang Lily's favorite lullaby until she fell asleep. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Each breath sounded like it cost her everything she had left. That evening, after Lily had been asleep for 2 hours, and the night nurse had assured me she would call if anything changed, I went down to the hospital cafeteria. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My coffee was cold and tasted like despair. I called Natalie. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and eager, completely disconnected from my reality. "Elena, did you see my messages? Isn't it exciting? The house has 5 bedrooms and a pool. Can you even imagine I've already hired an event planner? This is going to be the party of the year." "Natalie, I can't talk about party planning right now. Lily is—" I know, she interrupted. "But you can't put your whole life on hold forever. This is a huge milestone for me, and I need my sister there. You're always so responsible, always so reliable. I'm counting on you." I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Natalie had always been like this. Everything was about her. I could trace the pattern back to our childhood. When I got my first A on a math test in 4th grade, She threw a tantrum until our parents took her out for ice cream to cheer her up. When I made the volleyball team in high school, she announced she was trying out for the lead in the school play, demanded our parents attend every rehearsal, every performance. When I got married to Marcus 7 years ago, she announced her engagement at my wedding reception. She clinked her glass during the toast, stood up, and said she had an announcement that couldn't wait. Marcus proposed last night, she had said, beaming, holding up her hand to show off the ring. We're getting married next spring. The room had gone awkward and quiet. My mother had smiled and clapped. My father had raised his glass, and I had swallowed my hurt and congratulated her because that was what you did for family. When I graduated from nursing school, she showed up late and spent the entire dinner talking about her promotion at the medical device sales company where she worked. I remember sitting at that restaurant, my degree finally earned after 6 years of night classes and weekend study sessions while working full-time and listening to Natalie describe her company car and expense account. My mother had turned to me at one point and said, "You must be so proud of your sister." When I told her I was pregnant with Lily, she spent 20 minutes complaining about how hard it was to be child-free in a society that pressured women to reproduce. We were at a family dinner, and I had just shared the news, hands shaking with excitement and terror, because pregnancies at 34 came with risks. Instead of congratulations, Natalie had launched into a monologue about societal expectations and how she was perfectly happy without children, and why did everyone assume motherhood was the ultimate achievement? My mother had nodded along. My father had agreed that children weren't for everyone, and I had felt my joy shrivel up, packed away, made small. But when Lily was born perfect and beautiful and mine, I thought things might change. I thought Natalie might soften, might find room in her self-centered universe for this tiny person. She visited once in the hospital. She stayed for 12 minutes. She took a photo holding Lily, posted it on social media with a caption about being the cool aunt, then handed her back to me and said she needed to get back to work. She missed Lily's first birthday because she had a sales conference in Las Vegas. She missed Lily's second birthday because she was closing on a condo and the paperwork was time sensitive. She sent gifts always expensive, never thoughtful, designer baby clothes that Lily would outgrow in weeks, toys too advanced for her age, gift cards that felt like an afterthought. When Lily was diagnosed with neuroblastoma 3 weeks after her third birthday, Natalie sent a text. "That's rough," she had written. "Let me know if you need anything." She never called. She never asked how Lily was doing. She never offered to visit or help or just sit with me while I fell apart. "What date were you thinking?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. "June 14th, she said. "It's perfect. Summer weather, everyone's available. Mom and Dad are so excited. They're already booking their flights from Arizona." That's when Lily might. My voice cracked. "The doctor said we're looking at early to mid-June. I might be planning a funeral then, Natalie." Silence stretched between us for exactly 5 seconds. I counted them. Then Natalie sighed, that particular sigh that said I was being difficult and unreasonable. "Elena, I understand you're going through something awful. I really do. But life goes on, you know. And you can't expect everyone to put their lives on hold indefinitely. If something happens with Lily, we can work around it. But I've already put deposits down with caterers. The invitations are at the printer. I've hired a photographer." Something cold and sharp settled in my chest like a piece of ice forming around my heart. "You're saying your housewarming party is more important than my daughter's life?" "That's not what I'm saying at all," she snapped. "Don't twist my words. I'm saying we can't live in limbo forever, and honestly, you might need the distraction. Being at the hospital all the time isn't healthy. You need to remember that life exists outside of that place. The distraction. She thought I needed a distraction from my 3-year-old daughter dying of cancer. "I'm going to hang up now," I said. "Elena, don't be like this. I'm trying to help you. You're being selfish." The word hit me like a slap. Selfish. I was selfish for wanting my family to acknowledge that my daughter was dying. I hung up without responding. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. 2 days later, Lily asked me why Aunt Natalie hadn't visited in so long. She loves you, baby, I lied. She's just very busy with work. Does she not like hospitals? Lily asked, her voice small. Is that why she doesn't come? Something like that, I said. But it's not because of you. You're the most lovable little girl in the whole world. I got more messages from Natalie over the next week. She had finalized the party plans. She had chosen a theme. She had selected the menu. She included me on all the group texts with our parents and her friends. The date remained June 14th. I didn't respond to any of it. On June 3rd, Lily stopped eating. The nurses tried everything, her favorite foods, ice cream, popsicles, anything to get calories into her failing body. She would take one bite and push the plate away. I'm not hungry, Mommy, she would say. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, baby, I would tell her. Never be sorry. But inside I was screaming because I knew what it meant when terminal cancer patients stopped eating. It meant the end was coming. On June 5th, she stopped speaking in full sentences, just fragments, words that took effort to push out. Love you. Tired. Stay. I held her hand, constantly terrified that if I let go for even a moment, she would slip away. On June 7th, the hospice nurse, a gentle woman named Maria, who had seen too many children die, pulled me aside. Elena, she said softly, we're in the final days now, maybe hours. I want you to be prepared. Her breathing is changing. Her body is starting to shut down. I nodded because I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat was too big, the grief too overwhelming. Is she in pain? I managed to ask. No, Maria said. We're keeping her comfortable, so she's not suffering physically. She knows you're here. She knows you love her. That's what matters now, on June 9th, at 3:47 in the morning, while I was singing You Are My Sunshine. For the 1,000th time, Lily took her last breath. I didn't realize at first that it was the last one. Her chest had been rising and falling so unevenly for hours that I thought the pause was just another pause. But then the machines changed their rhythm. And then they went silent. And then Maria was there, her hand on my shoulder, and I knew. I'm so sorry, she said, tears in her eyes. She had been caring for Lily for months and had loved her too. I sat there for another hour, holding my daughter's hand, unable to let go. Her hand was still warm. She still looked like she might open her eyes. If I didn't let go, maybe it wouldn't be real. Maybe I could pretend a little longer. Maria gave me all the time I needed. She dimmed the lights. She left us alone. When I finally stood up, my legs barely held me. I kissed Lily's forehead one last time. It was still warm. Goodbye, my sunshine, I whispered. Mommy will see you again someday. I promise. When I left the hospital at dawn, the world looked wrong. How could the sun be rising? How could people be starting their days, going to work, drinking coffee, living their lives? How could the world keep turning when mine had just ended? Colors seemed muted, like someone had drained the saturation from everything. Sounds seemed distant underwater. I felt like I was moving through a thick glass, everything slow and heavy and wrong. I went home to my empty apartment. Marcus had taken most of his things when he left. What remained was mine and Lily's, her toys scattered across the living room floor, her drawings taped to the refrigerator, her toothbrush in the bathroom pink with princess stickers, her bed with the star-patterned sheets she had picked out herself. I sat on her bed, surrounded by her stuffed animals, Mr. Bunny, and Patches the dog, and Rainbow the unicorn, and I let myself fall apart completely. I screamed into her pillow until my throat was raw. I cried until there were no tears left, just dry, horrible sobs that shook my entire body. I begged God, or the universe, or whoever was listening to, let me trade places with her. Take me instead. Bring her back. please, please, please. But no one was listening. Or if they were, they didn't care. My daughter was gone, and I had to figure out how to keep breathing in a world that no longer contained her light. I called the funeral home later that morning. The director was kind and patient as I made arrangements I should never have had to make. A parent should never have to bury their child. We set the funeral for June 14th. It was the first available date, and I needed it to be soon. I couldn't bear the thought of waiting. I called my parents in Arizona. My mother answered. "Elena," she said. "How is Lily?" "She's gone," I said. "She died this morning." My mother made a sound like all the air had left her body. "Oh, Elena. Oh, honey. I'm so sorry." "We'll be there," my father said in the background. He must have been on speakerphone. "Whatever you need will be there." "The funeral is June 14th, I said. 10 a.m. Silence. "Oh," my mother said. "Oh, that's the same day as Natalie's party." "Yes," I said. "It is. Well, we'll talk to Natalie," my father said. "I'm sure she'll understand. She'll reschedule. This is more important." I waited. I wanted to believe him. An hour later, Natalie called me. "Elena, I just heard about Lily," she said. "I'm so sorry. This must be devastating for you." "Thank you," I said. "But we need to talk about dates," she continued. "I can't reschedule the party. I have 70 people confirmed. The caterer won't refund the deposit. The venue is already decorated. You're asking me to change my daughter's funeral date?" I asked, my voice flat. "I'm not asking you to change anything," she said. "I'm just saying that maybe you could do the funeral on a different day, like June 15th or 16th. That way everyone can attend both events." Both events. My daughter's funeral and her housewarming party were both events in her mind. Equivalent. Interchangeable. "Natalie," I said slowly, "Lily is dead. My baby is dead. And you want me to change her funeral date so people can come to your party? When you put it like that, it sounds bad," she said. "But Elena, I've put so much money into this. And it's not like Lily will know what day the funeral is. Dead children don't care about dates." "Is that what you're saying?" I asked. "That's not—" "You're twisting my words again," she said. "I'm trying to be practical here. We can honor Lily and celebrate my new house. It doesn't have to be either or." I hung up. My hands were steady this time. The ice around my heart had grown thicker, colder. 2 hours later, my mother called back. "Elena, honey," she said, "your father and I have been talking, and we've decided we're going to go to Natalie's party." "You're what?" "We're going to Arizona for Natalie's housewarming," she said. "We've already bought the plane tickets, but we'll visit you the week after. We'll spend a few days with you. We'll help you go through Lily's things. You're choosing Natalie's party over your granddaughter's funeral," I said. "It's not like that," she said. "Natalie needs us right now. She's worked so hard for this house. She's so excited. And you said yourself that Lily is gone. She won't know if we're at the funeral or not. But Natalie will notice if we're not at her party. She'll be hurt. She'll feel unsupported. My 3-year-old daughter died yesterday," I said. "And you're worried about Natalie's feelings." "We love you both," my father said, taking the phone. "But we can't be in 2 places at once. And Natalie is alive and needs our support. Lily is gone. We'll mourn her together as a family, but we need to do it at a time that works for everyone. I'm not rescheduling my daughter's funeral," I said. "Then I guess we'll have to miss it," my mother said. "I'm sorry, Elena, but you're being unreasonable." I hung up. I sat in Lily's room for a long time staring at her bookshelf, her toys, her tiny shoes lined up by the door. Then I started planning. Not just a funeral, something else. Something they would never forget. The funeral was beautiful. I made sure of that. White roses everywhere, Lily's favorite. Photos of her at every age from newborn to 3 years old, smiling in almost every picture despite the pain she must have been in. Her favorite songs playing softly. The church was full, friends from the hospital, other parents from the oncology ward, who understood exactly what I was going through. My colleagues from the clinic, Lily's preschool teacher and classmates. Marcus even showed up sitting in the back row crying silently. My parents were not there. Natalie was not there. Instead, they were in Arizona celebrating a house. I gave the eulogy myself. My voice didn't shake. Lily was light and laughter, I said. She was brave in ways I never knew a child could be brave. She faced things no child should have to face with grace and humor and kindness. She worried about the nurses working too hard. She made friends with the other children on her ward and tried to cheer them up when they were sad. She asked me once if the doctors ever got scared when children died because she didn't want them to feel bad. My daughter spent her last days worried about other people's feelings. She had more compassion in her 3 years than some people develop in a lifetime. I paused and looked at the empty pews where my family should have been sitting. Some people, I continued, don't understand the difference between what matters and what doesn't. Some people value things and events and appearances more than they value the people who love them. Those people lose something essential to being human, and they don't even notice it's gone until it's too late. After the service, we went to the cemetery. I placed Lily's favorite stuffed bunny in the casket with her. I whispered promises I would keep. I love you forever, I said, and I will make sure the world remembers you. I will make sure the people who should have been here understand what they lost. That same evening, while my parents and Natalie were toasting her new house in Arizona, I made my first post. I had been building my social media following for months, sharing Lily's story, documenting our journey through cancer treatment. People had followed along, sent prayers and well wishes, donated to help with medical bills. I had 20,000 followers who had watched Lily fight and lose her battle. Now I posted a photo. It was a split screen. On the left, Lily in her hospital bed, thin and pale but smiling. On the right, a screenshot of Natalie's party invitation with the date prominently displayed. The caption read, "Today I buried my 3-year-old daughter. She died of cancer after fighting for 8 months." Today was also my sister's housewarming party. She knew the funeral was today. She refused to reschedule. My parents chose to attend her party instead of their granddaughter's funeral. Some people value houses more than humans. Some people value parties more than prayers. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but so you understand who these people are. I tagged Natalie. I tagged my parents. I tagged Natalie's employer. Within an hour, the post had been shared 500 times. People I didn't know were commenting, sharing their own stories of family betrayal, expressing horror and support. Within 3 hours, 10,000 shares. My phone started ringing constantly. Friend requests flooded in. Messages from strangers offering condolences, sharing their own grief stories, telling me I was brave, telling me I was right to expose them. By morning, it had gone viral. 100,000 shares. Then 200,000. Then 500,000. The post was everywhere, screenshot, and reshared across every platform. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram. Everywhere I looked, people were discussing it. Comments flooded in by the thousands. Most were supportive, horrified, expressing disbelief that anyone could be so callous. I can't imagine choosing a party over a funeral. Those parents should be ashamed. That sister is a monster. This poor mother, I'm so sorry for your loss. Some tried to defend my family, saying there must be more to the story. Maybe there were circumstances we didn't understand. Those comments were quickly drowned out by people sharing their own stories of narcissistic family members, golden child dynamics, and being abandoned in their darkest moments. This is exactly what happened to me when my son died. My sister complained that my grief was making her uncomfortable. I know this pain, one woman wrote. When my daughter was sick, my mother told me I was being dramatic. Family isn't always what it should be. Natalie's employer, a medical device company called Meditech Solutions that prided itself on compassion and patient-centered values, started getting calls. Hundreds of them. Their phone lines were overwhelmed. How could they employ someone so heartless? Didn't they have standards? What kind of person chooses a party over a child's funeral? Do you really want someone like that representing your company to hospitals and patients? Their social media accounts were flooded with comments. Their Glassdoor reviews suddenly filled with one-star ratings from people who had never worked there but wanted to make a point. The local news in Phoenix picked up the story. They sent a reporter to Natalie's housewarming party. The reporter arrived at 8 p.m. camera crew in tow and asked the guests if they knew they were celebrating, while a child's funeral had taken place that same day. People left the party in droves, suddenly uncomfortable, suddenly realizing they were complicit in something ugly. The video of guests hurrying to their cars, looking ashamed, went viral too. My parents' friends in Arizona saw the post. Their retirement community was buzzing with gossip. People they had known for 15 years stopped talking to them. Their church community saw it too. The pastor called them, asking them to consider whether they needed to make amends, suggesting they might want to step down from the ministry team until they sorted out their priorities. The people at Natalie's party saw it, many of them sending me private messages. "I'm so sorry," one wrote. "I had no idea. If I had known, I never would have attended. Please accept my condolences for Lily." "I didn't know the full story," another said. "Natalie told us her sister was dealing with something difficult, but didn't want to burden people with details. She made it sound like you were being dramatic. I should have asked more questions. I'm ashamed I went. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, sitting on Lily's bed, her stuffed animals surrounding me like a fortress. I felt nothing. No satisfaction that my post was gaining traction. No guilt that I was destroying my family's reputation. Just a cold, hard numbness that had settled over me the moment Lily took her last breath. Just a cold, hard determination to make them understand what they had chosen to miss. The magnitude of what they had lost. The weight of their choice. Natalie called me the next morning, her voice shrill with panic. "Elena, what have you done? Do you have any idea what you've done?" My phone won't stop ringing. People are messaging me horrible things. The company is reviewing my employment. "You've ruined my life." "I buried my daughter yesterday," I said calmly, "while you celebrated a house. It was just a party," she screamed. "Just a party. You're destroying my career over a party." "It wasn't just a party to me," I said. "It was the day you proved that your house was more important than my child's life. It was the day our parents proved they valued your feelings more than their granddaughter's memory." "Actions have consequences, Natalie. You're learning that now. You're psychotic," she said. "You need help. Mom and Dad are right. You've always been the difficult one, the one who makes everything about you." I hung up. She tried to call back 17 times. I blocked her number. My mother called next. "Elena, please," she begged. "Please take down that post. You're hurting Natalie. You're hurting us. People are saying terrible things. Your father's business is being affected. People are leaving bad reviews online because of this. You have to stop." "I'll take it down," I said. "When you apologize. When you acknowledge what you did." "We didn't do anything wrong," she said. "We were just trying to support both of our daughters." "Then I have nothing to take down," I said, and I hung up. Over the next week, the consequences multiplied. Natalie was fired from her job. The company released a statement saying they could not employ someone whose values were so misaligned with their patient-centered mission. My parents' business, a small consulting firm my father had run for 30 years, started losing clients. People didn't want to work with individuals who skipped their grandchild's funeral for a party. Natalie's friends began distancing themselves from her. The photos from her party were taken down from social media. People who had attended sent me private messages apologizing, saying they hadn't known they wouldn't have gone if they had understood. Natalie's mortgage payment came due. Without her job, she couldn't make it. She called my parents for help. They sent her money, draining their retirement savings. But it wasn't enough. One payment became 2, then 3. I created a memorial fund in Lily's name the week after the funeral. Lily's Light. I called it because she had been my light in the darkness. The mission was simple: to help families struggling with pediatric cancer costs, to provide the support I wish I had when Lily was sick, to turn unbearable grief into something that might ease someone else's suffering. I announced it on social media, along with updates about the foundation I was creating and my story of Lily's battle. I posted photos of her throughout treatment, smiling despite her bald head, hugging her stuffed bunny in her hospital bed, painting pictures during the rare days she felt well enough, blowing out 3 candles on her last birthday cake. Every post was a love letter to my daughter. Every post was a reminder to my family of what they had missed. Every post was a testament to what truly mattered. The donations poured in. $20,000 in the first 3 days, $50,000 by the end of the week, $100,000 by the end of the month. People wanted to honor Lily. They wanted to support my mission. They wanted to be part of creating light from this darkness. Every donation came with a message. In honor of Lily, for all the brave children fighting, from one grieving parent to another, because no family should face this alone. My sister is battling leukemia. Thank you for doing this. I lost my son to brain cancer. This would have helped us so much. You're turning tragedy into hope. With each donation, I felt Lily's presence. This was her legacy. Not the cancer that killed her, not the family that failed her, but the light she inspired the lives she would touch even after her death. Every donation was another reminder to my family of what they had chosen to miss, what they had chosen to devalue, what they had lost. Within 3 months, we had helped our first family. The Johnsons, whose 5-year-old son had just been diagnosed with leukemia. The father had lost his job because he needed to be at the hospital. The mother was working part-time, but medical bills were crushing them. They were facing eviction. We paid their rent for 3 months. We covered their utility bills. We provided grocery gift cards. We gave them breathing room to focus on their son without worrying about losing their home. Mrs. Johnson called me crying. "You saved us," she said. "I don't know how to thank you. We were drowning, and you threw us a lifeline. Honor Lily." I told her. "Love your son fiercely. That's all the thanks I need." The second family we helped had a 7-year-old daughter with a rare brain tumor. They lived 3 hours from the nearest children's hospital. The gas money alone was crushing them. We provided gas cards, hotel vouchers for nights they needed to stay near the hospital, and meal vouchers, so they didn't have to worry about food. By 6 months, we had helped 12 families. By 1 year, 50 families. Each one represented a child fighting for their life. Each one represented parents holding their breath, hoping for miracles, preparing for the worst. Each one reminded me of my own journey, my own helplessness, my own grief. But helping them eased my pain just a little. It gave Lily's death meaning. It transformed my rage into purpose. I opened a support center a year after Lily's death. A place where parents of terminally ill children could come for respite, for counseling, for community. I knew what it was like to feel completely alone in your grief. I knew what it was like to be surrounded by people who couldn't understand. I knew what it was like to need someone who had walked this path before. The center offered everything I had wished for during Lily's illness. Professional counseling with therapists who specialized in grief and trauma. Support groups where parents could share their stories without judgment. Respite care. So exhausted parents could take a few hours to shower, sleep, breathe. Financial assistance for funeral expenses, because no parent should have to choose between burying their child and paying rent. On the 1-year anniversary of Lily's death, we held a memorial event at the center. 200 people came. Families we had helped. Other parents who had lost children. Nurses and doctors from the pediatric oncology ward. Strangers who had followed Lily's story and wanted to honor her memory. We released 100 white balloons, one for every child being treated for pediatric cancer in our city. We planted a garden with flowers donated in Lily's name. We lit candles and shared memories and cried together and laughed together and remembered that even in darkness, light could exist. I spoke to the crowd, my voice steady despite the tears. Lily taught me that 3 years can contain a lifetime of love, I said. She taught me that courage looks like a tiny girl facing needles and pain without complaint. She taught me that joy can exist even in the worst circumstances if you choose to find it. And she taught me that the people who should love us most can fail us in ways we never imagined possible. But she also taught me that from that failure, from that grief, from that rage, something beautiful can grow. This center exists because Lily existed. These families are getting help because Lily mattered. This community exists because one little girl's life and death meant something. I looked up at the sky, imagining Lily watching, imagining her proud of what her mother had built. I miss you every second of every day, sweetheart, I whispered. But I hope you're proud. I hope you know that your light is still shining, still touching lives, still making the world a little bit brighter. The crowd was silent, many people crying. Then someone started clapping, then another. Then the entire crowd was applauding, not for me but for Lily, for what her memory had inspired, for the lives that would be changed because one mother refused to let her daughter's death be meaningless. 3 months after the funeral, Natalie's house went into foreclosure. She moved in with my parents in Arizona, who were now struggling themselves. My father's business had collapsed completely. My mother had taken a job as a receptionist to help make ends meet. They were in their late 60s, supposed to be retired instead, working to stay afloat. Natalie couldn't find work. Her name was too recognizable now, associated with the viral story. Every job interview ended the same way, with uncomfortable questions about the funeral, the party, the choice she had made. I watched it all from a distance, documenting everything, sharing updates with my followers about Lily's light and the good that was coming from tragedy. The foundation was growing. We had helped 12 families in 3 months. I was giving meaning to Lily's death, creating light from darkness. My family was drowning in the consequences of their choices, and I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not guilt, just that cold, hard numbness that had settled over me the day Lily died. 6 months after the funeral, I received a message from an investigative journalist named Rebecca Walsh. She worked for a major national magazine, one of those publications that people actually read that carried weight and credibility. She had been following Lily's story from the beginning, following the viral post, following the fallout. Now she wanted to do an in-depth feature piece, not just about what my family did, but about the larger patterns of family dysfunction, narcissism, and betrayal during times of crisis. I agreed immediately. I wanted the story told fully, completely, with every ugly detail exposed to the light. Rebecca spent 2 months researching. She interviewed me for hours, asking questions that made me relive the worst moments of my life. What was going through your mind when you got Natalie's messages about the party? How did it feel when your parents chose her celebration over Lily's funeral? What was the moment you decided to make the post? Do you regret the consequences your family has faced? I answered everything honestly. No, I don't regret it. They chose wrong. They needed to understand the weight of that choice. She interviewed Natalie too, though my sister hung up on her 3 times before finally agreeing to talk. The quotes Rebecca got from her were damning. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, Natalie had said. I mean, it was just a funeral. Lily was already gone. Nothing we did or didn't do was going to change that. I had worked so hard for that house. I deserved to celebrate. Rebecca had called me after that interview. "I need you to know," she said, her voice quiet. "I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've interviewed murderers, corrupt politicians, con artists. And your sister might be the most self-centered person I've ever spoken with. She genuinely doesn't understand what she did wrong." "I know," I said. "That's why I had to do what I did." Rebecca interviewed former colleagues of Natalie's who described her as manipulative, calculating, willing to lie to close sales. She found instances where Natalie had exaggerated product capabilities to doctors' falsified reports to make her numbers look better, thrown other sales reps under the bus to advance her own career. She discovered that Natalie had been under investigation at Meditech Solutions even before my viral post. Multiple complaints from hospital administrators about misrepresentations. A formal inquiry into whether she had violated medical ethics guidelines. The investigation had been building for months. My post had simply brought it to a head, made it impossible for the company to ignore or quietly handle. "So your post didn't ruin her career," Rebecca said. "It accelerated consequences that were already coming." "Small comfort," I said, "but I suppose it's something." Rebecca interviewed my parents too, flying to Arizona to speak with them in person. They were living in a small apartment now, their retirement home sold to pay legal bills and support Natalie. "My father looked ancient," Rebecca told me later. 20 years older than his actual age. Your mother's hands shook the entire interview. She cried multiple times. They know what they lost. They know what they did. And they're drowning in the consequences. "Good," I said flatly. "They should drown." The article came out on a Tuesday morning. I had requested that Rebecca send it to me the night before, so I wouldn't be blindsided by what she had written. I read it at midnight, sitting at my desk in the foundation office, Lily's photo watching me from the shelf. The article was titled, "When Family Fails, the Cost of Choosing Wrong." It was devastating. Rebecca had laid out the entire story chronologically. Lily's diagnosis and battle, Natalie's history of self-centered behavior, the party invitation and the date conflict, my parents' choice to attend the party instead of the funeral, my viral post, and its immediate consequences. But then she went deeper, exploring patterns of family dysfunction that extended far beyond my specific situation. She interviewed psychologists about golden child syndrome, about how some parents enable one child while expecting the other to be endlessly understanding. She talked to other people who had been abandoned by family during medical crises. A woman whose parents missed her cancer surgery because they were on a cruise. A man whose siblings refused to help with their mother's hospice care because it interfered with their social lives. A mother whose in-laws demanded she host Thanksgiving dinner 3 weeks after her baby died. The common thread, Rebecca wrote, is a fundamental misunderstanding of what matters. A valuing of appearances, celebrations, and personal convenience over genuine human connection and support. A belief that life should continue as planned, regardless of tragedy. That grief should be private and convenient. That those in crisis should manage their pain quietly so as not to burden others. The article included screenshots of Natalie's social media posts from the party. Photos of her smiling, holding champagne, standing in front of her new house. Posted at the exact time Lily's funeral was taking place. The juxtaposition was stark, cruel, undeniable. Rebecca had obtained internal emails from Meditech Solutions showing the investigation into Natalie's conduct. She had documented every instance of exaggeration, every falsified report, every ethical violation. The article made it clear that Natalie had been building toward termination for months, that my post had simply forced the company's hand, made it impossible to quietly handle the situation internally. She quotes my parents from their interview in Arizona. "We thought we were doing the right thing," my father had said. "We thought Natalie needed us more. We thought Elena was strong enough to handle it. We thought wrong. We chose wrong. And we'll regret it for the rest of our lives. My mother had been more emotional in her quotes. I think about Lily every day, she said. I think about missing her funeral. I think about what she must have looked like in her casket. I think about the fact that I'll never forgive myself. We lost our granddaughter and then we lost our daughter. And it's our own fault. We chose a party over a funeral. How do you come back from that? How do you live with that? The article ended with my quote from the interview. My daughter taught me about love, about resilience, about what truly matters in life. My family taught me that some people will never understand those lessons, no matter how clear you make them. I've chosen to honor Lily by helping others and creating meaning from loss. They've chosen to play the victim while facing consequences they earned. I know which choice Lily would be proud of. The magazine hit stands and websites at 8 a.m. By noon, it was the most read article on their platform. By evening, it was being discussed on cable news. By the next morning, I had been invited to appear on 3 national talk shows. The article won multiple journalism awards over the next year. It was taught in psychology classes as a case study in family dysfunction. It was referenced in ethics courses at medical schools. It became part of the cultural conversation about what we owe each other, especially in times of crisis. And it ensured that my family would never ever escape the story of what they had done. Their names were now permanently associated with choosing a party over a funeral, with valuing a house over a child, with betrayal at the deepest level. No amount of apology or time would ever change that. They would carry this for the rest of their lives, just as I would carry Lily's loss for the rest of mine. 1 year after Lily's death, I was sitting in the office of Lily's Light Foundation. We had just helped our 50th family. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Elena. It was Natalie. Her voice sounded hollow, defeated. I'm calling because I need to tell you something. I've thought about it every day for a year. Every single day. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. The party, the date, the choice I made. I was selfish and cruel, and I didn't understand what I was doing. I took a breath, waiting. I destroyed my own life, she continued. Not you. Me. I made the choice to value my party over your daughter. I made the choice to prioritize my celebration over your grief. I made the choice to be the kind of person who could do that. And I've paid for it. I've lost everything. My job, my house, my reputation, my friends. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me now. They blame me for destroying their retirement. I'm working at a call center making minimum wage. I live in their spare bedroom. I'm 38 years old, and I have nothing. I caused all of this, she said. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can never make it right. I know that. But I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did, what I destroyed, what I left. I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said Lily would be 4 years old now. She would be in pre-K making friends, learning to read. She would be dancing and singing and asking a million questions. She would be alive. And you chose to miss her funeral for a party. I know, Natalie whispered. I know. Your apology doesn't change anything I said. It doesn't bring Lily back. It doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make me forgive you. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just needed you to know that you were right. About everything. I hung up. I sat in my office for a while looking at the photo of Lily on my desk. Her 3rd birthday 2 months before her diagnosis. Chocolate cake all over her face, eyes bright with joy. She's smiling at the camera like she knew something wonderful that the rest of us were still learning. I whispered to her photo. They finally understand, sweetheart. They finally understand what they lost. 2 years after Lily's death, my father had a heart attack. Massive. He survived, but barely. My mother called me from the hospital, her voice shaking. "Elena, your father is asking for you. Please. He needs to see you before, in case. Please." I drove to Arizona. Not for him, for myself. Because I needed to see with my own eyes what my revenge had cost. My father looked ancient in the hospital bed. He had aged 20 years and 2. His hair was completely white. His hands shook. His eyes were hollow. "Elena," he said when he saw me. His voice was weak. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry we weren't there. I'm sorry we chose wrong. I'm sorry we failed you when you needed us most." I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "I'm sorry we failed Lily," he continued. "She deserved better grandparents. She deserved better than us." I waited. "I thought Natalie needed us more," he said. "I thought you were strong enough to handle it alone. I thought wrong about everything." My mother stood in the corner crying silently. She looked broken, brittle, like one strong wind would shatter her completely. "I've spent every day of the last 2 years regretting that choice," my father said. "Every single day. Wishing I could go back. Wishing I could be at that funeral. Wishing I could hold you while you grieved. But I can't. I can't fix it. I can't make it right. All I can do is tell you that you were right to cut us out. You were right to punish us. We deserved it all." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "Lily loved you. She asked about you in her last weeks. She wondered why you didn't visit more. She thought maybe she had done something wrong." I told her you loved her. I lied to protect her feelings, because that's what parents do. They protect their children from the truth when the truth is too ugly. My father closed his eyes, tears running down his face. "I should have been there," he said. "I should have been there." "Yes," I said. "You should have." And I walked out. 3 years after Lily's death, I received a letter from Natalie. She was in a court-ordered treatment program for depression and suicidal ideation. She had tried to take her own life twice. The letter was long, rambling, full of apologies and self-recrimination. She detailed everything she had lost, everything she had destroyed, everything she wished she could change. At the end, she wrote, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable, but I want you to know that every day I think about Lily. I wish I had known her better. I wish I had visited more. I wish I had been the aunt she deserved instead of the selfish monster I was. I'm in therapy now. I'm trying to become a better person. Not for you. I know it's too late for that, but because I can't live with who I was anymore. I can't carry that weight." I read the letter once, then filed it away. I didn't respond. Some things can't be fixed with apologies or therapy or time. Some bridges once burned to leave nothing but ash. 4 years after Lily's death, Lily's Light Foundation had helped over 200 families. We had raised over $2 million, every penny, going directly to families in need. We had opened 2 more support centers in neighboring cities. We had expanded our services to include not just financial assistance, but grief counseling, support groups, respite care, bereavement services, and educational resources. We provided everything I had wished existed when Lily was sick and dying. We were the support system I had desperately needed and didn't have. I had quit my job at the clinic to run the foundation full-time. It was my life now, my purpose, my way of ensuring that Lily's death meant something beyond grief. Every family we helped was a piece of Lily living on. Every child who got treatment, because we covered the co-pays, was a light in the darkness. Every parent who found community in our support groups was a reminder that no one should face this alone. I was interviewed on a national morning show about the foundation's work. The interviewer, a woman in her 50s, who had clearly done her research, asked me the question everyone wanted answered. Do you regret what you did to your family? Do you think the punishment fit the crime? I had prepared for this question. I had known it was coming. I thought about it carefully before answering, knowing that my words would be clipped and shared and analyzed. What they did wasn't a crime in the legal sense, I said slowly, but it was a betrayal at the deepest possible level. My daughter was dying. They knew she was dying. They knew when the funeral would likely take place, and they chose to schedule a party on that same date, then chose to attend the party instead of saying goodbye to a 3-year-old child who deserved better. The interviewer nodded, her expression sympathetic. So the viral post was necessary, I said. They needed to understand the magnitude of what they had done. They needed to face consequences that matched their choice. They needed to learn that some actions are unforgivable. And did they learn? She asked. I think so, I said. But it took losing everything for them to understand what they had lost. Do I regret it? No. Would I do it differently if I could go back? No. Because some lessons can only be learned through suffering. Some people only understand loss when they experience it themselves. My family needed to lose their comfortable lives, their reputations, their financial security to understand what they lost when they chose a party over a funeral. The interviewer leaned forward. But do you think revenge brought you peace? I was quiet for a moment, considering. No, I finally said. The revenge didn't bring me peace. It brought them understanding, but it didn't heal me. What started to heal me was choosing to move forward, choosing to build something meaningful from the grief, choosing to help other families so they wouldn't feel as alone as I felt, choosing to honor Lily's memory by being someone who creates light in the darkness. The revenge was necessary, but it wasn't sufficient. Healing required something more, something only I could give myself. It required choosing life over rage, choosing purpose over punishment, choosing to be the mother Lily would be proud of. The interview went viral too, though not in the same way my original post had. This time people were talking about healing, about choosing to move forward, about finding meaning in grief. That evening, I sat in my office at the foundation, looking at the wall of photos. Lily, at every age, smiling in almost every picture. Photos of the families we had helped. Thank you cards, drawings from children whose treatment we had funded. A framed copy of the magazine article. Awards the foundation had won. Letters from grateful parents. This was Lily's legacy. Not the cancer that killed her. Not the family that betrayed us. But the light that continued to shine because of her, because of what her short life had meant, because of what her death had inspired. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city. 4 years ago, I had stood in Lily's hospital room watching her die. 4 years ago, I had received messages about a housewarming party scheduled for her funeral day. 4 years ago, I had made a choice to expose and destroy the people who had betrayed us. And now 4 years later, I was standing in an office dedicated to her memory, running a foundation that bore her name, helping families facing the same nightmare I had faced. The revenge had been earned. The consequences my family faced were just. Natalie lost her career, her house, her reputation. She spent 3 years working minimum wage jobs, living in my parents' spare room, facing the reality that her choices had consequences. She served time in a court-ordered treatment program after 2 suicide attempts. She would carry the weight of what she did for the rest of her life. My parents lost their retirement, their comfortable life in Arizona, their standing in their community. They lost Natalie to depression and dysfunction. They lost me to justified rage. They lost Lily to cancer, then missed the chance to say goodbye because they chose a party. They would never recover from those losses. They would spend the rest of their lives regretting, wishing, wondering how they could have chosen so wrong. But here's what I learned through all of this. what 4 years of grief and rage and healing had taught me. Revenge is a double-edged sword. It cuts the people who wronged you, yes, but it also cuts the person wielding it. I spent 2 years consumed by anger, by the need to make them suffer, by the satisfaction of watching their lives crumble. And in those 2 years, I barely lived. I existed. I functioned. I ran the foundation and helped families and did good work. But I didn't heal. I didn't move forward. I stayed frozen in that moment when Lily died, and they chose wrong. It wasn't until year 3 when I started actually processing my grief, instead of channeling it into revenge, that I began to truly heal. When I started therapy, when I joined a grief support group, when I allowed myself to remember Lily with joy instead of just with pain, when I started dating again tentatively, a kind man who understood that my daughter would always be part of me, when I made new friends who knew me as Elena, founder of Lily's Light, not just as Elena, the woman whose family betrayed her, when I started saying yes to life again instead of just saying no to my family. The foundation had started as revenge, as a way to show my family what mattered, what they had missed. But it became something more. It became genuine purpose, genuine healing, a genuine way to honor my daughter by helping others. And somewhere in that transformation, I realized that the best revenge wasn't watching my family suffer. The best revenge was living well, building a life so full of meaning and purpose that their absence didn't matter, creating happiness and connection that had nothing to do with punishing them, becoming the woman Lily would be proud of, not because I destroyed our family, but because I built something beautiful from the ruins. I turned back to Lily's photo on my desk, the one from her 3rd birthday. That smile, those eyes, that joy. "I'm trying, baby," I whispered. "I'm trying to be the mom you deserved. The mom who doesn't just rage at the people who hurt us, but who builds something that makes your light shine brighter. I think you'd be proud of what we've built here. I think you'd love that other kids are getting help because of you. I think you'd understand why I did what I did to Natalie and Grandma and Grandpa. But I also think you'd want me to be happy, to live fully, to find joy again. And I'm working on it. I promise I'm working on it. The grief would never fully go away. 4 years later, I still had moments where the loss hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Still had days where I saw a little girl Lily's age and had to turn away before I broke down. Still had nights where I woke up reaching for her, forgetting for one cruel moment that she was gone. But I was learning to carry it differently, not as a weight that crushed me, but as a reminder of how much I had loved, how much I had been changed, how much she had mattered. The revenge had been necessary to teach my family the cost of their betrayal. But healing required something else entirely. It required forgiveness, not of them, but of myself. Forgiveness for not being able to save Lily. Forgiveness for the moments I had lost patience during her illness. Forgiveness for being human and flawed, and sometimes overwhelmed. It required accepting that some things can't be fixed, can't be changed, can't be undone. It required choosing to move forward, even when part of me wanted to stay frozen in that hospital room, holding Lily's hand singing lullabies one last time. It required believing that life could still have meaning, still have beauty, still have purpose, even after losing the most precious thing in my world. My family chose wrong 4 years ago. They chose a party over a funeral. They chose celebration over grief. They chose selfishness over support. And I made sure they paid for that choice in ways they will never fully recover from. But I also chose. I chose to create Lily's Light. I chose to help families facing impossible situations. I chose to turn my rage into purpose. And eventually I chose to heal. Not to forgive, never to forgive, but to release the need for their suffering to be the central focus of my life. to let go of the anger that was eating me alive, to choose life and light and love over revenge and rage and retribution. That's the ending that Lily would want for me. Not a mother consumed by anger, but a mother who honored her by living fully, loving deeply, and creating light in a world that could be so terribly dark. That's the legacy I'm building. That's the choice I'm making every single day. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real victory. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for bearing witness to my grief, my rage, my healing. Drop a comment if you've faced betrayal during your darkest moments. Hit that subscribe button for more real stories about survival and choosing to live after loss. And remember, revenge can be necessary and earned and just. But healing requires something more. It requires choosing yourself, choosing life, choosing to honor the people you've lost by becoming someone they'd be proud of. Lily was 3 years old when she died. She taught me more about love and courage and what truly matters than some people learn in a lifetime. My family taught me about betrayal, but I'm teaching myself about resilience, about surviving the unsurvivable, about finding light, even in the deepest darkness. And that's a lesson worth sharing. Thanks for watching.